What's up guys, and welcome back to the Bonsai YouTube channel. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about how to tell if your juniper bonsai is dying, so stick around. Alright, so one of the most common trees that people first get in the art of bonsai is a juniper. And quite frankly, I think that these species are very underrated as bonsai. Because they are people's first trees, people tend to pass them off as not good trees just because they see them as beginner material, and if they work on them then they won't be seen as a top-notch bonsai artist. Now, I think that's just a little bit ridiculous because these trees actually make fantastic bonsai, and they're one of the easiest things to make look like a traditional style bonsai. But we're not here to discuss that today. What we're here to talk about is how I can help you figure out whether your juniper bonsai is dying. Now, when it comes to juniper bonsai, we understand that the energy of a juniper is in its foliage, okay? So the foliage is going to be your number one telltale sign of whether your juniper is suffering from ill health. Now, this one that I've got right here, this is a juniper that I currently have in development at the moment. There's a few things I'm working on with this tree. As you can see, we've got a bit of the dead wood here out the back, and this tree is absolutely just put on a massive amount of growth, okay? But this is okay. I want to leave this at the moment, even though it's grown way out of proportion and way out of its shape. This is actually allowing those branches that I chose and wired for the structure, it's allowing them to thicken. So for now, I'm going to keep this growth on. But you can tell how healthy this tree is just by the tips that are on it. So this tree at the moment is in absolutely 100% perfect health. But how can you tell if these particular species here are going downhill or they're declining in health? Let's bring you in a little bit closer and we'll have a look at the tree close up and have a chat about a few things. Alright, so now I've brought you nice and close in on this branch here, and we're just going to have a talk about the first sign that there's something going wrong with the juniper, and this is usually the biggest telltale sign. But there is a little bit of confusion here that still freaks people out a little bit, because we tell them about the juniper foliage going brown, but there's a time when it goes brown that's normal, and there's a time when it goes brown when it's not so good. But there is an easy way to distinguish that, so we're going to have a look now. So as you can see here, we've got this whole branch that runs up through here, okay? And then this is what's going to be our pad out here. Now, if this branch was to be dying, okay, well, let's just say this tree was dying, this would happen on every single pad around the tree. But let's just focus in on this pad for a second. So if either I thought the branch was dying itself or the whole tree, if it was just the branch that was dying and it only happened on this one pad, the rest would be fine. If the whole tree was dying, then what I'm just about to explain would happen on every single branch of the tree as a whole, because the whole tree is actually dying. So, what will happen on a juniper that is dying is the very tips of the branches will die first, okay? So, on this particular branch just here, this is where you're going to see the dieback start to happen first, right on the very tips, okay? And then it's going to move back down the branch as it dies. So you're going to get brown, and then you're going to get brown, you're going to get brown, you're going to get brown until the whole branch goes brown. But it's always going to start from the tips, okay? If you open up your branches, okay, and right here in the middle, right next to where the actual branch is, if you get some browning off in here, but it's still very green out here on the tips, okay, that's nothing to worry about because that's likely just growth that's been shaded off, okay? Now, I've actually got some growth here that I just ran out into the garden and got. Now, this is off some junipers that are actually developing, so they're very full of growth like this particular tree. But this particular growth that I got here is actually growth that is browned off and died because it's been shaded out by other growth. But either way, it still looks the same, okay? So this is the growth here. Very dead, very browned off, very dry, very crispy to touch. The needles are very sharp. These are very soft. These are very, very sharp and hard to touch, okay? So if this branch was dying, you could expect to see this on the very tip out here, okay? That'd be where it would go brown first. And then it would move back through the branch as the tree was dying more, okay? And as I said, this is on the very tips that it's going to happen first, out here. If it's happening right up in the middle, up in here, but it's not out here, then don't worry about it. It's only if it happens on the tips. And as you can see with this growth again, you can just see how crispy it is. See how it just falls apart when you touch it? It starts to fall away. It's no good. See? Oop. See, that just all crumbled and broke in my hand. Where this, I can play with this as much as I want, and it's, you know, this is growth that's got a lot of moisture in it and is very healthy. That other growth that I just showed you, so this kind of stuff here, this is growth that's dried out. It's not had any resources put to it, no moisture or anything. So it's dried out, become very dry, crispy and brown. So that's one way to tell if your juniper is dying. And it's the very telltale signs that the tips start to go brown and then it moves backwards down the branch into the center of the tree. Now, what you're going to find on junipers like this is coming out of spring into summer most of the time, the interiors, the very interiors of the tree up in here, that's actually going to brown off. So don't worry about that too much. If your tips are fine and your interiors are browning off, don't freak out about it. So I'm going to move you into a different part of the tree and we're going to have a look at another way to tell if your juniper's dying. Alright, so now we're actually in the tree here, and as you can see in here, this tree is very healthy from all these little buds that are in here. So what I'm about to show you is going to be a good example of, you know, seeing if a tree is healthy or if it's in a bit of ill health, sorry. So what we've got here is our branch. And this is what I usually call the scratch test, okay? And I try to explain this to people. What we do is we just scratch a little bit of the surface layer of the bark away. And what we're looking for is a green colour. See that green colour underneath the bark? And see how vibrant and green that is under there? That tells me that this tree is very, very, very healthy because of how green that is under there. And that was just the tiniest, you can see that bark on there that I just scratched off. It's just a tiny little surface layer, okay? I've just pushed it back over there, and I'll just pull it away again. Okay, so you can see inside there how green that is. I don't think I could get this off, or maybe I could. The bark here that I've taken off, it's probably going to be hard to see on camera. You can see it there on the end of my finger. Oh, we've lost it anyway. But it's only like skin layer thin how much you have to scratch off. And then you can see under there how vibrant and green that is. Now, if this tree wasn't healthy, the less green that is, the less health your tree has in it, okay? And if that's pretty much white under there, then your tree is toast, okay? This needs to be green underneath that layer. So that's the scratch test. You've probably seen in hardware stores and stuff, the little bonsais in there have a bunch of little scratches and nicks on them like this, and that's just people scratching them to see if they're actually alive or if they're selling dead trees in there. But this is a really good way to tell if your juniper bonsai still has a lot of health in it, if it's got all that green colour in it. Alright, so you've seen up close in the tree now two of the best ways to tell if your juniper bonsai is dying, and they are going to be your 100% telltale signs. But let's just have a quick talk about coloration. I always hear people asking me, my juniper's turning yellow, or, you know, it's changing colour, is it dying, what's it doing? Now, a lot of the time, when a juniper changes colour, this can be one of two things, okay? And it should be pretty easy to tell which one it is. One, it'll be a nutrient deficiency, okay? Or the other one will be just the fact that you're going into winter. junipers can turn different colours going into winter in colder regions. So I've seen some junipers go like a purplish colour. Some of them go like a darker browner colour. So the only real colour change you have to worry about when it comes to your juniper is that real light brown colour like I just showed you close up, right out on the tips, okay? If that starts happening at the tips, these start becoming crispy and falling off from the tips inwards, that's when you've got a problem, okay? But if your juniper's starting to look a bit lackluster in its colour, maybe just feed it some nitrogen, okay? Nitrogen will help bring that colour back into the tree and put a bit more health into it. Make sure you keep up with your watering and everything. You know, these trees are pretty hardy little trees. That's what makes them so great for beginners. They're a little bit hardy against frost, just depending, you know, on the health of the actual tree and how much frost. You know, these can't get super cold, but they can get fairly cold. I usually tell people down to about, you know, -6 degrees Celsius, and then after then I would probably start trying to protect the tree, especially if it's in a cheaper pot. But that's what we're going to talk about for today. I just wanted to show you those two main telltale signs if your juniper bonsai was dying. So if you've come across this video, I'm guessing that you've got a juniper that, you know, you're a little bit worried about. If you would like to see the first work that I did on this tree, I'll actually link it at the end of this video. So when this video ends, it'll pop up at the end there. So click on that and check out when I actually styled this tree. It was just basically a bush before I styled this. I'll leave some links down in the description below to our free forum, to our blog, to our merchandise store, and all that good stuff. So check all that stuff out. If you haven't already liked, shared, and subscribed, then go ahead and do that because that helps the channel grow. But until next time, enjoy your bonsai journey.